Welcome back. In this lecture, I will tell you about the enhance input. Before jump into the lecture, let's talk about the mapping. Unreal Engine provides two types of mapping. First is axis mapping and the second one is action mapping. Axis mapping is used when we perform continuous actions like player movement. When we keep pressing W and S key for the player to move forward and backward. And when we release these keys, the continuous action is to be stopped. This section is called axis mapping. Action mapping is used when we press the key one time like player attacking. This section is called an action mapping. Let's move on to the lecture. First create the input folder. Then create the action folder to keep player actions. Let's first create the movement action. Go to the input and select input action. Give the action name is IA move. IA means input action and move means movement. Open the action and choose value type from bool to axis 2D because our character will move two axes like X and Y. Let's create another axis IA look. This action will be used for the camera. And change the value from bool to axis 2D because our camera will also work in the X and Y axis. Let's create input mapping to map these actions because I have created an actions but I did not map. We cannot use actions without mapping. Right click and go to the input and select input mapping context and choose the name IMC shooter character. IMC means input mapping context and the shooter is our main character. Open this and map the actions. Select IA move and you can find keys from here. I want to move my player forward, then I select W and even you can also select from this icon. Press the icon and press the key which you want to keep. Then add modifier because we need two different values, positive and negative. Positive means forward movement and negative means backward movement. We need two more keys, right and left. And add modifier swivel input axis values. This modifier flip the axis of input. The input is basically passed to the move action as a 2D vector like X and Y. If you were to ignore swivel, you would be sending the values of W, S as the first X-axis only. We need to modify it. The first one is swivel input axis values and the second one is negated. Then add the next mapping, select IA look. Look is used for the camera movement. Search movement, search mouse axis 2D because we need X and Y camera movement. Add negate modifier. Uncheck both X and Z because I want to rotate our camera only on Y axis. Save and close the IMC. Let's move on to the blueprint logic to implement mapping and other stuff. First create the controller folder because I already told you in my previous lecture. Controller is controlling our character. Right click and select blueprint class and select player controller. Write the name of the controller. And now change the controller class is in the game mode because I want to use own controller. Open the controller class and go to the event graph. First we need to implement input mapping, then right click and search enhance input. First we check it is valid or not. Click and drag and search is valid node. And now add mapping context to implement our IMC shooter. If it is true, then call the IMC shooter. Now compile the event graph. So that's it in this lecture. See you in the next lecture.